You're watching Beyond Markets. Welcome, I'm Kenneth Igbomo. On today's show, we'll do a post-mortem on Nigeria's presidential elections, and as always, you can join the conversation by using the hashtag Beyond Markets. You can also follow my Twitter handle at Kenneth Igbomo. Now, Nigeria's presidential elections was concluded with the Independent National Electoral Commission declaring the incumbent president, Muhammadu Buhari, as the winner of the polls. However, the process was not without hitches. Martin Onovo is a former presidential candidate of the National Conscience Party, joins me as we analyze the entire process.
Well, the first thing is that from the beginning, the integrity of INEC was questioned. So many parties asserted the partisanship of INEC. And we must take note of the small things that lead to the big issues. Prior to now, any commander-in-chief or head of government that appoints a chairman for the Electoral Commission appoints from outside his region, which suggests fairness. This is the first time that a head of government appointed the key positions in INEC, which are the chairman and the most senior director, from his region and his religion. In addition to that, the presidency has confirmed that the most senior director is related to the president. So this, from day one, introduced suspicions of partisanship on the part of INEC. And INEC continued to act in ways that seemed to confirm partisanship.
I would like you to get into those ways you think the commission was acting in a partisan manner.
Very good. The registration of underage voters has been captured in several videos, reported on major edited platforms, and confessed by several notable people. That's one. It's INEC that registered those kids. Number two, the registration process of new people seem to have been skewed in favor of the stronghold of the incumbent that appointed the INEC chairman.
I would like you to tell me in specific terms how you think this happened.
It's very simple. Many people, if you check your reports, if you covered the registration process, you will see the frustration of people who spent a whole week trying to get registered in registration centers that are mostly in the South. And how easy it was for those who were in the Northwest to get registered by the same INEC, which is supposed to use the same processes. So we have countless cases reported by the mass media.
In other words, you're saying there was a structural, there was a deliberate.
Yes.
To
disenfranchise. Oh, clearly, that's what I'm saying.
Those are very, very strong allegations you're making.
No, but they have been there. Are you pretending you're not aware? They have been there. The allegations were there when the registration was ongoing. A lot of people, they call to radio stations, they say, I am tired, they say, I've gone 5 times.
Yeah, we actually did a report on that. And
that's my point. So why are you making it look like these things? I'm not the only one who saw them.
Yeah, we saw the difficulty but our report only covered for Lagos. We saw the difficulty.
Same thing. I was a presidential candidate. That, in the minimum, suggests that I have structures throughout the country. So I'm able to sit in my office and get an idea of what is happening, even if it's not a perfect picture. Because I know who to reach to. So that's number one. These things are known and documented. Now, if you look at the complaint about nomination, I have gone through that nomination process. I'm not just a public analyst. I filed a nomination for president, or my party filed on my behalf, and I submitted my international passport as evidence of my age. INEC rejected it. International passport, Nigerian international passport, and insisted I must bring a sworn affidavit. I had to go and tender a sworn affidavit. Now, somebody submits without WAEC or any other certificate, And INEC took it in and dared us to go to court. That suggests partisanship to me. I'm not saying it should suggest partisanship to you. It suggests partisanship. I have participated in the process. Okay. So, if INEC will be over strict and thorough with me, and then lax with another candidate, and you think that that's not discriminatory, and that's not partisan, that's your opinion. But it is my opinion that INEC should have enforced the constitutional requirement of a minimum of WAEC. If you don't have WAEC, bring your BSc. Bring your teacher's grade 2. But bring something. So why do other candidates have to bring? I brought my master's degree from the University of Houston.
Okay.
Why do other candidates have to bring and one candidate doesn't have to bring?
All right, then let's
That's impunity.
Okay, let's get to other issues because we have a long way to go. We're trying to do a proper postmortem of this election process here. Also, before the elections, there were also some strong statements that kind of raised, issues around. We had this comments from the president, the governor of Kaduna State, talking about body bags. We also had a comment from the president talking about, his directive to the law enforcement agencies to be ruthless on election offenders. When you look at how the election played out for you, and you look at things, do you think this comment in any way shaped how the elections went through?
No, I think those were controlled immediately. Of course, you can't have complete control, but the mere fact that the head of government later disagreed with the comment about body bags and said the government was going to guarantee the security of observers and everybody else. So that diffused that a little bit. The one of being ruthless was corrected, unfortunately, by an inferior authority, which is the acting IGP. Because at the last INEC press conference, he said it clearly that ballot box snatchers will be arrested and prosecuted. He didn't say they will be shot at sight. So that's also a technical way of diffusing detention. But we saw what happened in Okota, voter suppression. And we saw that the police, rather than try to arrest the culprits who are on video, was instead trying to pick up the ballot box and the ballot papers. So that could have scared a lot of people. It
raised the question, and he mentioned it when he made the announcement there, talking about the fact that, as a country, we need to come sit and have some serious conversations on the electoral process and how to move it forward. In your estimation, how do you think this should go about? We've had the people from the Situation Room, the Nigerian civil societies are suggesting that we have a proper stakeholders meeting, and everybody sits in and then gives their own chip in their own thoughts on how we can all come together as a nation and move this electoral process forward.
I think you're asking the right questions, but I won't ask those questions in those manners because I'm an insider.
Okay.
There's the ethical ambience is very poor. The ethical ambience is very poor.
On the side of the commission?
On the side of both the commission and in the entire national landscape. And that's why you have the level of corruption you have in Nigeria. The ethical ambience is very poor. Now, going back to 2015 and going through Nigerian history, we keep sitting down and talking. What is the outcome of sitting down to talk? If you looked at the rules for the election, it should be easy to validate this election. If you looked at the rules for the 2015 election, it should be easy to validate the 2015 election. But we make these rules and nobody keeps them. Our constitution gets violated and nobody's interested. And you raise it and they say, are you the only person in this country? Why don't you let us have some peace? That's not peace. That's why you have your low life expectancy. That's why you are estimated to have 140 deaths on your roads every day. If you do the wrong things, you're going to get the wrong answers. If you want to get the right answers, you must do the right things. And that's why you and I should be concerned about doing the right things. And that's why we should challenge those who do the wrong things. And not say, oh, that's how they have been doing it before. If you conduct an election, it should be verifiable. One person does not do collation, starting from the polling unit level. So INEC cannot just come and declare fictitious figures. And if INEC claims the figures are right, INEC should open itself to verification. Refusing to allow independent authorities to verify shows that you have so much to conceal. especially when your integrity has been called to question, especially when there are relationships that suggest bias, especially when your figures are being challenged and there are contrary figures showing that the people you declared, the candidate you declared the winner lost the election. You can see what happened in the market. The indications are there. The results announced by INEC cannot be scientifically verified. I dare INEC to show scientific verification. So the first thing, we have a video of an INEC collation officer saying that the military, not the police, disrupted collation in Ikwere local government. So, first error, what is military involvement? If there was an infraction, it is police business. And there are allegations of intimidation by the same military. So, it is not in the interest of the country. The country will not develop if we wish away iniquity. We need to address and correct it.
And that was Martin Onovo. He's a former presidential candidate of the National Conscience Party. And as we continue our analysis of Nigeria's presidential elections, still with me is Martin Onovo. He's a former presidential candidate of the National Conscience Party. We've talked about the pre-election issues. We've talked about, the postponement of the election. But now I want us to get on to the election day proper. When you look at how the elections were conducted on that day, what does it speak of our democracy?
Well, the first thing is that we need to understand democracy. Because everybody runs around with the word democracy. What does it really mean in theory and in practice? There are two pillars of democracy: the rule of law and the integrity of the ballot. The rule of law and the integrity of the ballot. Why should a 14-year-old not vote in Nigeria? Because the law says you vote when you're 18 and above. That's the rule of law. Now, if a 9-year-old is able to vote in Kano under the same law, but a 16-year-old cannot vote in Owerri, what does that mean? That's a violation of the law. So these things are simple. Over-analysis is part of the problem because over-analysis is being used to becloud simple issues. And that's why I don't want to engage in any over-analysis. It's being used to becloud simple issues. So that's the rule of law. The rule of law also says that the candidate who scores the highest number of valid votes, not invalid votes. The same law defines what valid votes are. So if I declare a candidate who has not scored the highest number of valid votes, that's fraudulent. That's against the law. Now, the second pillar is the integrity of the ballot. 16 is not greater than 19. 500 is greater than 400. The integrity of the ballot. It is what the ballot says that dictates the direction of an election. It is not what I think. Because I am a professor of quantum mechanics. It's not what I think. It is the integrity of the ballot. And in Nigeria, it's universal adult suffrage. So, if you're a professor, one vote. If you're a stark illiterate grandma, one vote. So that's what the law says. And it's the integrity of that ballot that determines the outcome of elections. So when we say violations, anything that does not comply with these standards is undemocratic.
Okay, so let's look at, we agree that a lot happened on the day. We saw violence, flashes of violence here and there across the country. We saw voter intimidation in some areas. We saw snatching of ballot boxes and even people's ballots being burnt down. And then the Independent National Electoral Commission says they are aware of a lot of these challenges, but there are solutions within its processes to ensure that, at the end of the day, the votes of people are counted and represent the will of Nigerians. What do you say to this?
It is very simple. In Nigeria, things that are simple all over the world become very complicated in Nigeria because we deliberately complicate simple things because of the ethical ambience. Ghana did an election. One other African country did an election.
Senegal had an election
immediately after our own. Their results came up before our own. Even before the official result of INEC came up, the US Congress had raised issues that it was taking forever, and that allows for tampering. So the standards we have are stone age and unacceptable. If we had signed the Electoral Act Amendment that was endorsed by the same INEC, but when the government rejected, the same INEC developed cold feet, the same INEC. If we had signed it, it would have been more difficult to rig the election, because results would have been sent directly from the polling units to central collation. In which case, you eliminate how many levels? Ward level, local government, state level, which allow, 3 levels that allow for manipulation. So, if those results come in there, we're not saying it's final. We're not saying INEC should not do its normal validation. But we're saying it gives at least a basis for validation, which was one of the things that one of the opposition parties required from INEC. Say, let us use the card readers, since that was the rule. The rule is that to vote, you must have PVC. The PVC must be authenticated by the card reader. So very simple. Give us the card reader total accreditation numbers, so that we even know the total number of votes, so that you're not padding. Because the allegations now are that votes were removed from opposition parties and votes were padded. So it is simple to clear. Specific states have been named. They're not up to 10. Open those states to verification. Very simple. By independent parties. And then everybody will show that the majority wants General Buhari. And then we will clap for him.
Okay. Interesting you mentioned the issues around the coalition process, you know, because a lot of people thought it was cumbersome, it dragged on and on and on, you know. I want to bring up the issue of the amount of presidential candidates we had in this election. It's the first time we had that number.
It was mischief by the same INEC. The same INEC that the head of government called incompetent.
How do you say?
And INEC is completely incompetent.
Yeah, but
and if they're incompetent, they can't deliver a free and fair election.
But I need you to clarify why you think it was mischief.
It was mischief because INEC says the law allows you to register political parties. That is true. That is true. What are the conditions? Did all those 73 entities meet the conditions? No. If you start registering briefcase political parties, you can have 200 million political parties, because we're 200 million Nigerians. Then I have my political party, you have your own. Each individual has his own party. And that also led to increased logistic challenges, increased cost of the election. Because instead of printing a ballot paper like in 2015 with 14 parties, they had to print a ballot paper with 73 parties. That is more ink. That is more paper. So it also increased the cost. So you need to put brilliant people in position so that they can make reasonable and intelligent decisions. But he decided, and we know why. It's not published. The ulterior motive was to divide the opposition. Register as many parties as possible so that the opposition...
But that's still a conspiracy theory.
That's what I'm saying. That's why I said it is not published. I've admitted that it's not published.
Okay.
But that is the motive. There's no other motive. Divide the opposition, split their votes.
Because I think it's... Yeah, I agree on the one hand that it's quite much, because at the end of the day, we saw just on the eve of the elections, about 12 of the parties...
It also delays the process. Because if you have 14 options, it's easy to identify the one you want out of 14, the party you want. If you have 73 options, maybe you have to strain your eyes before you identify the party you want. So it was deliberate mischief. And you can see that a lot of them did not participate in the election. They did not campaign.
But do you think there was enough voter education, you know, on part of INEC to get people to understand that about the parties? And
there was not enough, but we have a history. We voted in 1999. We voted in 2003. We voted in 2007. We voted in 2011. We voted in 2015. We have a history. So with that history, we should have built the culture. But because of corruption and fraud, the culture cannot develop.
Okay. Yeah, because I look at the coalition process and a lot of issues, you know, came in during that time. We had the issue of one of the presiding officers who came in who was drunk and then couldn't read the one for the state, and then they had to get someone else to read it on behalf. It speaks to the character and question of people who are handling these very sensitive materials. You know, we have ad hoc staff, people from the NYC, and you know, people who are not full staff of the INEC handling a lot of this sensitive material on election day. You know, we had an incident in Ikoyi where, you know, some of the people complained that they came in late, and even when they came in, their attitude was not in a manner that people felt, you know, could, you know, assure them that, you know, we've been waiting here, at least you give us that modicum of respect and dignity. But when you look at that, it speaks to the fact that the commission is short-staffed.
I don't agree with your conclusion. Why?
Okay, all right then.
Why don't I agree?
Right.
INEC cannot, for elections that hold in 2 days out of, in every 4 years, employ everybody it needs. The idea of using coppers, I find it reasonable. Coppers are people who have an identity. If there's a fraud and the copper has committed fraud, we can find him. We can find him. A copper is not a nameless person. We know where he went to university. We know his addresses. We know where he served. So INEC needs ad hoc staff. INEC got funds, and INEC claimed that it trained the people. And I am aware that INEC had training sessions. What you seem to not want to accept, which I am very convinced about, is the deliberate.
But you have to prove it beyond reasonable doubt for me before you
It's
can
only
say.
in court that you can prove it.
Okay.
And results don't lie. Because the same way we are claiming now that INEC is the legitimate authority to conduct election, that is the same INEC that conducted election in Anambra that was fraudulent. So we're not saying INEC is not the legitimate authority. We're saying that INEC has a history of conducting fraudulent elections. And there are allegations that this one also is fraudulent. And we're saying it needs to be validated. That is the only way you will get INEC to start conducting proper elections. And that is the only way you have democracy. And that's the only way you can have the dividends of democracy. Because if I owe my ascension to power to the people, I will serve the people. If I owe my ascension to the power to a military cabal, I will serve that military cabal. Except I don't want to come back. So whether we like it or not, the only way to get the right results is to do the right things. Now there is a challenge that what we did is not right. If we're actually patriotic, we should be interested in demonstrating beyond any doubt that it is right. We should be.
All right, then.
And especially when we have seen figures that are prima facie, fictitious. Lagos has the highest population without question in the whole country. Without question, including housing population. Now, Lagos cast over 1 million votes, not up to 1.1 million. Smaller states cast nearly 2 million votes.
Yeah, but like we mentioned, we had the issues about
we're talking about scientific correlation.
Yeah, no, we had issues about voter turnout. You know, a lot of people didn't come out.
Yes, so why do people come out in the less populated areas and come out, especially in places where we have video evidence of underage?
When you look at the way the elections were conducted, the elections were conducted, on the day we had people. For example, myself, I work in Victoria Island. On the day I was at work that day, I couldn't vote, not because I didn't want to vote, but my center was in Ikeja. You know, Allen Avenue to be precise. And so on that day, it would have meant that I would have, after work, I'd have left here, which we were live, driven all the way to
Ikeja. And before too, because you have to get to the police station according to the rules before too.
So for me, that was almost impossible. But I can imagine the amount of people in Lagos, for example, when you understand how the state is structured, you know, for people who had either lived at one location and have moved.
Do you realize that Kaduna, Katsina,
Kano,
Jigawa voted higher than Lagos? Okay, if these arguments are right, how come Lagos had the highest number of registered voters? How come Lagos had the highest number of PVCs? Voter turnout in Lagos turned out to be about 20%. We are having outrageous numbers elsewhere. So, these things are inconsistent. There are scientific gaps at this level. Because I don't want to say that those who did their own parallel collation, saying that INEC collation was fraudulent. I'm not saying their own is right either. But I'm saying that
we need verification.
Yes, because we have scientific indications that INEC collation may not be right.
And that was Martin Onovo. He's a former presidential candidate of the National Conscience Party. And that's it on Beyond Markets for today. Thank you so much for joining us. Remember, you can watch all previous episodes of Beyond Markets on our website at cnbcafrica.com, and you can stay engaged with the hashtag Beyond Markets. You can also follow me at Kenneth Igbomo. Enjoy the rest of your day.